ChatGPT, once the David to Google's Goliath, is about to bite the dust. If it doesn't come up with something significantly better than the current 5-point version it offers and does it very soon, it will be game over for OpenAI, ChatGPT's parent company. Now, this is not some wild, unsubstantiated prediction that only I am making. Even Sam Altman, the man who runs OpenAI, has himself admitted that the company is in trouble. In a recent internal memo, Altman warned his employees that the company is about to face what he called temporary economic headwinds and that the vibes will be rough. Less than 2 weeks later, he issued another internal company-wide memo declaring a code red, laying down the strategy that OpenAI will have to follow to tackle its current crisis. This is the exact reversal, the exact opposite of what happened at the end of 2022, 3 years ago, when OpenAI first made ChatGPT public to us. Back then, it was Google which had issued a code red to take on OpenAI. But, this is not just a battle between OpenAI and Google that we're talking about. It is about the entire future of the world we live in. It is about whether AI will be used to make our lives better or it will only generate more profits for big corporates. There are 3 key aspects to it, and I will look at each of these in greater detail in this video, so stay with me. The first and perhaps the most important right now is about business strategy or the business model. OpenAI is increasingly turning out to be faulty. ChatGPT's design is meant for consumers, while Google and Anthropic target businesses first. This is a crucial differentiator, as we will see later on in this video. Which brings me to point number 2, which is connected to the first. Who has more money and who can generate more profits and sustainable revenues in future? As you will see in this video, as of now, this is a losing battle for OpenAI. It simply doesn't have the financial firepower to go to war with a behemoth like Google. And this is what brings me to point number 3, again connected to the first 2, which is the final aspect of this battle between the AI giants. ChatGPT is losing to Google's Gemini on almost every technical benchmark right now. And the biggest reason for that is that it doesn't have the money to attract or hold on to the best talent in the industry or to spend the huge amount of money that is required for deep R&D. But before we dive deep into each of these, I want to quickly talk about what AI means for our society right now and the economy that underlies it. Because the battle between OpenAI and Google is a precursor or a prequel, if you prefer, of the coming economic war between consumers and big business. By now, no one doubts that AI will take jobs. Not just a few, but millions and millions of jobs, millions and millions of white-collar jobs. The debate now is over what kind of society that will lead to. Some, like Elon Musk, for reasons of his own, they believe that work itself will become optional in another decade. It'll be like a hobby. He has even said that AI and robots will eradicate poverty and everyone will have UHI, universal high income. Of course, this will only be possible if governments redistribute the wealth and income of the super rich and the billionaires amongst everyone, whether they work or not. That is pure poppycock, a ridiculous utopian vision where billionaires and future trillionaires like Musk will happily give up their wealth and income and distribute it to others. A much more likely scenario is much less benign. Most people will not have any income if their jobs are taken over by AI or robots, so they will have very little money to spend on consumer goods. That means consumer-facing businesses will also collapse, especially the smaller ones, which will not be able to invest as much in robots and high-performing AI agents as their bigger competitors will. But big business, run by billionaires, oligarchs, will survive longer by selling to each other. And more importantly, by getting lucrative contracts from the governments they will own. Right? They will control those governments and get contracts. I've done a separate video on this, on how one section of big business will continue to make hay even if AI drives consumption down. Do watch it. I will leave a link in the description below. And while you're down there, do subscribe to my channel. More than 80% of those who return to watch my videos aren't subscribed yet. So click on the subscribe button and also the bell icon so that you get to know as soon as I publish a new video. It'll help me, it'll help the channel reach more people. Now, it is this future war between consumers and corporates that is fundamental to the battles that are being played out in the AI space right now. OpenAI's ChatGPT is consumer facing. It is meant to help you and me with everyday tasks, be our assistant, our aid. That is why it has a warmer, friendlier feel. ChatGPT's voice mode is still clearly the best, the easiest to have a conversation with, like the kind we humans have where we interrupt each other while we chat, right? ChatGPT is designed to be able to do that. Stop talking as soon as you speak and pick up from where you stop, and also move along with you very quickly in the direction that you have taken the conversation to. This makes it much more easy to work with for individuals, for consumers. So OpenAI's business model is consumer driven. It seems to believe that at some point we users will get so dependent on ChatGPT that we will be able to pay full whack for it, or at least willing to pay full whack for it. That is when OpenAI will start turning a profit instead of burning cash, which it is doing right now to acquire customers. Right now, as of December 2025, ChatGPT has more than 800 million active users per week. There's no official data available on how many of these are paying subscribers, but estimates from July this year suggest that at that time, roughly 35 million users subscribed to ChatGPT, with more than 90% paying for the $20 a month plus tier. The point is that even those who pay for using ChatGPT use much more of OpenAI's resources than they actually pay for. In fact, early this year, Sam Altman had admitted that OpenAI is losing more money on paying customers, especially top tier customers, because they use it much more than what the company had initially anticipated. One estimate suggests that OpenAI would have to charge plus users who pay $20, the lowest tier users, at least $60 per month to break even. The question is, would people be willing to pay that much, especially if AI has already taken their jobs? Obviously, OpenAI knows this, and it is betting that its tie-up with Microsoft will help it get a big chunk of the enterprise market, the demand for AI coming from corporates. Google's AI strategy, on the other hand, is enterprise first. So its focus is on making Gemini useful for businesses rather than consumers like you and me. Not that Gemini is not good at writing poems or stories or even a love letter. It is simply that those things are not central to the platform. They're in some ways side effects of what it does. It is much more oriented towards research and analysis and tasks that are much more useful in a corporate environment. I will cover that in greater detail when I talk about the various industry benchmarks where Gemini is currently beating ChatGPT. The point I am trying to make here is that Google is betting on earning from corporates, while ChatGPT has a more consumer-oriented model. In fact, that's what Google has always done for most of its services. Search, Gmail, YouTube, Maps, each of these depend on advertising and user fees charged for enterprise solutions. Consumers largely get all of these services for free. Even now, Google provides an extremely powerful educational AI platform, NotebookLM, for free to all users. In many countries, registered college students are getting, but it is not just Google which is causing problems for OpenAI, by the way. The bigger challenge has come from Anthropic. Anthropic has largely ignored the average consumer, although a version of its AI platform, Claude, is available for free. Instead, it went after high-value corporate clients who have regular revenue streams so they can pay their bills on time. 80% of Anthropic's revenue now comes from enterprise clients, and its code-generating platform, Claude Code, is the clear leader in the crucial coding space, where its market share is double that of ChatGPT. A recent report by HSBC puts Anthropic at the top when it comes to total AI spend by corporates. Anthropic has 40%, OpenAI 29%, and Google is right behind with 22% market share. ChatGPT is still the default destination for ordinary AI users, but even in this consumer space, Gemini is slowly catching up. ChatGPT is the leader with as many as 900 million monthly active users, but Gemini is not far behind with 650 million monthly active users. In fact, mobile downloads for Gemini grew 30% between July and November this year, whereas ChatGPT downloads grew by just 5%, which suggests that it has reached saturation. That is why point number 2, who has the money and the ability to earn, becomes all important. This is where Google, or Alphabet to be precise, has an immense advantage. OpenAI's revenues were about $4.7 billion in the first 6 months of 2025. Google's revenue in the same period was $186.6 billion. That means what Google sold in 5 days, OpenAI needed 6 months to achieve. OpenAI is expected to lose anywhere between $9 to $20 billion in 2025, depends on which estimate you take, while Google is expected to make a profit of $136 billion. You can see that Google has incredible amounts of financial firepower in its arsenal that OpenAI simply cannot take on. Google can outplay OpenAI not only in terms of compute, but also by poaching the best talent from the industry or even attracting the best newcomers. But Google's advantage goes much deeper. The latest model of Gemini has been trained entirely on Google's own TPUs, or tensor processing units, which are designed to handle specific machine learning driven tasks. They are considered to be less flexible but more efficient than regular GPUs or graphics processing units and consume much less power. While Google uses in-house hardware that gives it this massive cost advantage, OpenAI is committed to buying NVIDIA chips, where NVIDIA has a 70 to 75% gross margin. Again, Google has its own data centers, while OpenAI mostly depends on Microsoft Azure for its compute capacity. So Google can get chips and data centers at cost, while OpenAI is burdened by a double margin penalty. It has to pay for NVIDIA's margins on GPUs and Microsoft's margins on its Azure data centers. No wonder Google can offer Gemini Flash 2.0 to smaller businesses at just $0.50 per million tokens, while OpenAI charges $10 for something similar. So Gemini at a starting level is 95% cheaper than OpenAI. Even at a higher level, Gemini is about 12 to 15% cheaper than ChatGPT. And at those prices, Google would probably be close to breaking even pretty soon, at least on operating costs, while OpenAI would still be burning millions of dollars. Now, you might say that this is typical startup pricing. You give something new to consumers for cheap or even free. They form a habit which they can't break, and then you hook them with whatever you want to charge. The problem here is twofold. First is that Google can continue with this kind of what some would call predatory pricing for much longer than OpenAI can, simply because it has loads of cash sitting on its books, which it can spend without batting an eyelid. The second problem, and some call it a bigger problem, is the open source, ultra cheap Chinese AI models that are flooding the market. While US regulations and the national security concerns of various other nations might keep these models out of their home markets, many others will use them at least to reduce their dependence on pro versions of Gemini, Claude, or ChatGPT, which they have to pay a lot for. So these Chinese models will make it difficult for ChatGPT to increase prices. Indeed, we've seen how competition from Gemini and even Perplexity has forced ChatGPT to offer cheaper versions in countries like India. This is why analysts are predicting that OpenAI will burn cash much longer than it had originally expected to. HSBC's latest report estimates that despite all the investments OpenAI expects over the next 3 years, it will still fall short by over $200 billion by 2030. The problem with not having as much money as your competitors ultimately also affects the product itself. OpenAI has faced an exodus of top scientists, poached by Meta, Anthropic, and others, who are throwing money at top talent right now. That has made it tougher for ChatGPT to improve its model this year. In fact, many users have complained that the quality of responses from the Plus model has dropped over the past few months. I myself have been a ChatGPT Plus subscriber for more than 2 years now, and I've been a great advocate of the platform. But I too have personally experienced a sharp drop in ChatGPT's quality, especially when I compare it to what Google's Gemini 3.0 is capable of doing right now. And the evidence here is not just anecdotal. Gemini 3.0 outperforms ChatGPT 5.1 on almost every major benchmark. I will take only 3. In GPQA Diamond, the graduate level Google proof Q&A test used to evaluate the scientific reasoning capabilities of AI systems, Gemini 3.0 has scored 91.1% against ChatGPT 5.1's 88.1%. In Screen Spot Pro, a test to see how well an AI system can see things on a screen, Gemini 3.0 scores 72.7%. ChatGPT 5.1 scores just 3.5%. This is a crucial difference because what Screen Spot Pro tests is an AI platform's ability to recognize and understand things laid out across a screen, just as human white-collar workers have to do every day. This massive difference in performance makes Gemini 3.0 much more capable of handling routine tasks that a typical entry-level white-collar worker or even a middle manager might have to do on a daily basis. Finally, a test called Vending Bench 2. This is a simulation of running a vending machine over a year, beginning with a starting capital of $500. It involves negotiating with suppliers, handling inventory, and optimizing sales in the face of real-world conditions like bad weather, supply delays, and so on. Now, Gemini 3.0 ended up with $5,478, while ChatGPT 5.1 managed to make just $1,473. Gemini can clearly handle real-world business situations and earn more than 3 times the revenue that ChatGPT can. All of these are crucial for enterprise clients who don't really care about whether the AI can write a poem or give you a quick recipe. To sum up in each of these 3 aspects, business strategy, the availability of money, and technical superiority, Google is far ahead of OpenAI right now. Yes, the AI race has always been tight and unpredictable. OpenAI often releases new goodies in the 12 days of Christmas, so things might change in a couple of weeks. And I would be very happy if that happens because despite its massive size, OpenAI is still the underdog in this game. And also because I like OpenAI's consumer-friendly design. But I'm not holding my breath right now, expecting OpenAI to win here. What has your experience been in the past few months? Have you seen changes in ChatGPT? Has it become worse, or do you think it is still as good as it used to be? Let me know in the comments. And yes, while you are down there typing in your comment, do subscribe to my channel and also hit the bell icon so that I get to know whenever I publish a new video. Until next time, goodbye.